Okay, so um, we've got this stack of articles about relationships, and honestly, that kind of says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like we're holding up a mirror to that one relationship that's got us thinking, is this it? Is this the end? And trust me, I've been there. Like staring at my phone after a huge fight with a friend, just convinced that was it, you know?
Oh, absolutely. That feeling of where do we even go from here? It's so common. But the fact that you're here and we're diving into this, it tells me you haven't given up hope just yet.
Right. And that's huge. But before we even get to the fixing part, maybe we should define what actually makes a relationship broken.
Good point. I mean, let's be real. Every relationship has its moments, right? This Talkspace article, though, it really breaks down the difference between normal conflict and those, like, deeper cracks.
And they would know, right. Okay, so spill the tea. What are we talking about here?
Well, they list things like consistent lack of communication, feeling like the relationship isn't a priority anymore, that emotional or physical withdrawal.
Okay, getting real. Getting real.
Right. And then there's a resentment building up, dishonesty.
See, and it's funny because we brush those off at first, right?
Yeah.
Like those little bigs, those little
Right, that's
resentments.
the thing. We think, oh, it's fine, they'll come around. But those unspoken expectations, those can be brutal.
Oh, yes. The unspoken expectations. Like when, okay, this is so silly, but when I rearrange the dishwasher after my partner loads it their way, like part of me expects them to just know.
Oh, I feel that. We've all been there.
You have?
Totally. But this is exactly what Talkspace is getting at. We got to get those unspoken things out in the open.
That's scary though, right? What if they don't want to meet us halfway or it just becomes a fight?
Well, that's where the whole both partners have to be willing to put in the effort thing comes in. And that actually brings us to the advice they offer, because it's all about bridging that gap. Get this. They actually suggest dating each other again.
Wait, really? Like full-on date nights. Even if we're like way past that stage, I gotta say that feels a little cheesy.
I know, right? But hear me out. When was the last time you had time with this person where you were just dot present? No talk about work, chores, whose turn it is to do what.
Oh, wow. Okay, I see where they're going with this.
Right.
Suddenly, not so cheesy. More like hitting the reset button.
Exactly. And listen, it doesn't have to be some grand gesture. Even just an hour a week to reconnect, to remember why you fell for this person in the first place.
Okay, I'm with you. I'm starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel here. It's about rediscovering each other. Less about those big cheesy gestures, more about like a genuine connection. But where do we even start? Especially if it feels like we're speaking totally different languages.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because Talkspace actually suggests something that sounds, well, surprisingly simple. Weekly meetings. Just to check in.
Hold on. Meetings. This is a relationship, not a business deal.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But before you write it off completely, think about it. What usually leads to those blow-ups, those big fights, isn't it usually like a million tiny things building up? Things we don't talk about?
Okay, yeah, when you put it like that, it's like we let those little resentments just fester and become these huge problems.
Exactly. And these meetings, they don't have to be anything formal. It's really just setting aside that time to sync up, check in, see where each other's at, head off any potential problems before they become, well, actual problems.
So it's about being like proactive instead of reactive.
Exactly.
Okay, I can get behind that. But still, what about those times when those unspoken expectations pop up? Like in the middle of the week?
Well, that's where this other piece of advice comes in. Remembering to say thank you.
Oh, come on. Seriously.
No, but I'm not talking about just a throwaway thanks. I mean, really meaning it. Being genuinely appreciative of the things, even the small things, that your partner does.
That's a good point, actually. Because it's so easy to fall into that trap of keeping score. Like, well, I did this, so they should do that.
Exactly. And that is a recipe for disaster. So instead of focusing on what they're not doing, what if we focus on what they are doing and appreciate that?
It's about shifting your perspective.
Yes. Okay, I like it. And speaking of appreciation and connection, Talkspace also talks about the importance of physical touch. And before you say anything...
Well, I was going to say, if I'm already feeling tense, that's the last thing I want.
I get it, I totally do. But sometimes something as simple as a hug or holding hands while you're watching TV, even just a quick touch on the arm, it can be really grounding. It's a way of saying, hey, I'm still here, I still care about you, without having to actually, say it.
Right, it's like a nonverbal cue.
Exactly. And finally, another thing they emphasize is the importance of just having fun together. Like, really think about it. When's the last time you and this person did something purely for enjoyment, just to laugh and reconnect and...
That's the thing, isn't it? It's way too easy to get stuck in that routine. the bills, the chores, just getting through the day.
Yeah.
When do we forget to actually enjoy each other's company?
It really is easy to fall into that trap. But here's the thing, and it's a tough one. Even with all this advice, even when it feels like both people are really trying, sometimes it's still not enough.
Right. And honestly, that's almost scarier than seeing those broken relationship signs. Like, we can talk about communication breakdowns all day, but how do we actually face that possibility that maybe it really is time to walk away?
It's the toughest question,
Yeah.
and there's no easy answer. This article, though, it does bring up some really important points here, like recognizing patterns of abuse. And that's something we can't stress enough, right? Whether it's physical, emotional, verbal, those are non-negotiables.
Yeah, absolutely. No amount of love or trying again is going to fix that.
No.
Your safety always comes first.
Exactly. And they also talk about a constant lack of trust or respect. When someone just refuses to take accountability for their actions, or you're just walking on eggshells all the time, those aren't just bumps in the road. They're signs that something is really off.
And those are probably even harder to admit to, because maybe there are good days too, right? So you hold on to that little bit of hope that it'll change.
And that's exactly why this next part is so important. I want you to really think about this, okay? When you're with this person, how do you feel? Deep down. Not just on the surface, but really, truly, how do you feel? Do you feel energized? Supported? Like you can be yourself, flaws and all? Or do you feel drained? Small, like you have to shrink yourself to fit in?
Wow. Yeah. It's not just about fixing the problems you can see, it's about how that relationship is affecting you on the inside.
Yes. And sometimes choosing yourself, walking away from something that just isn't working, that takes so much strength. But it's not failure, it's taking control of your own happiness.
This has been, wow, it's really given us a lot to think about. It makes me think about that part of the article where they mentioned couples therapy. Even if you're not, at that point where you're thinking it's over, just having that space, that neutral ground to talk things through, that can make such a difference.
Absolutely. It's like having someone in your corner, helping you navigate all the ups and downs.
And I guess even beyond therapy, remembering that it's okay to ask for help, whether it's from friends, family, a therapist, whoever it is, that's not weak, that's smart. And sometimes we all need a little help, right? So wherever you're at on this whole relationship journey, whether you're rebuilding, you're figuring things out, or you're choosing yourself, just know you're not alone. Take what we talked about today, listen to that gut feeling, and remember, your happiness, it's worth fighting for, even if that means fighting for yourself.